Motor City Shakedown. Do the Detroit breakdown. Anyway, so Jay Giles band up on my playlist as I hit the play button. So here's what I decided to do this time. Talking about whiskey beer pairings, which is something I like to do. It's not for everybody, but I dig it. And I've said this before. So it's not about finding products with like flavors. It's about finding products that will work well together. And here's what I've decided to do, and here's why I decided to do it. Is I've got the Founders CBS Canadian Breakfast Stout. So it is their, let me read this. Imperial Stout brewed with chocolate and coffee and is aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels. It is 11.3%. So you've got a little bit of that sweetness, and I've decided to pair it with an 80 proof rye, Catoctin Creek, the Roundstone Rye. It's out of a small batch out of Virginia. I found at a store, and I hadn't seen it before, and apparently they've had it for a while, and somehow I didn't notice it. But I found it on a closeout. The suggested retail on their website is $45, and they did tell me there at the store that they did retail it originally for just about $50. And then it had been marked down, and then ended up at a closeout for $20. So I paid $20 for a rye that retails at about $45. And here's why I decided to pair these two. Is I had a little bit of this last night for the first time. As you would expect from a rye, it has that little bit of rye spice, and you've got that barrel spice. So I thought the spice of the rye would complement that sweetness from this CBS. So we're gonna find out, shall we? We're gonna find out together. I won't say it's necessarily one of my favorite movies, but a movie that has stuck with me over the years was Mad Magazine Up the Academy, an early movie for Ralph Macchio before he became the Karate Kid. And there's a line in the movie from the great character actor Ron Liebman, who plays this real creep in the movie, and he's trying to pick up someone, and he says, "Tickle your ass with a feather," and she says, "What?" And he says, "It's particularly nasty weather." Anyway, this line just came to me. I said to my wife all the time, I said, "Tickle your ass with a feather." What? It's particularly nasty weather. Anyway, I digress. Ron Liebman, man, was a genius. Anyway, I had this the first time in a few years that I purchased the CBS, and I quit buying it because I found it too sweet. But I have to say, this is my last bottle of the 4-pack, and I did enjoy this year's incarnation. I didn't find it as sweet. I found that the maple syrup played a supporting role and didn't take over the Imperial Stout, whereas in years past I found that the maple syrup just kind of took over everything. And here on the nose, you do feel that maple, but it doesn't overpower those Imperial Stout notes, which is important. And again, you also feel those chocolate and coffee notes that this particular beer is known for. We have some wintry weather here in the Ozarks today as I do this video. The ground is all white out there, man. Started with rain, then it became freezing rain, and then it turned into snow, and right now it's not doing anything at the moment. But it was just enough to make me want to stay my ass home today. We ain't going nowhere. So I started the fireplace, which is my TV, man. I love watching these fires, man. Just brings me back to my youth as a kid watching the fireplace. Anyway. And I think they make a nice background for the videos. But that could be just me. Anyway, let me talk about some flavors here, and I'm going to switch over to the whiskey. You do feel the maple, much like the nose, the flavors, the taste, the palate. You do feel that maple kind of running all the way through it, but it does play a supporting role, which is what I like. You do feel those imperial stout notes. You do feel the coffee. You do feel the chocolate, and you also feel some vanilla notes from the bourbon barrel. You do feel toffee notes from a bourbon barrel. And the reason this particular incarnation works for me is because you can feel all of those notes. In the past, the maple had just drowned out those other notes where all you really got was maple. And here you feel the maple, but it doesn't kill all the other flavors that this beer has to offer. And that's why this incarnation has worked for me. And let me take a drink, and I'll tell you why I chose to pair with this particular rye. You get these soft, buttery toffee notes on the nose, with notes of light toasted oak, combination of baking spice, a lot of lemon. A lot of ginger. I really feel some ginger notes. At the price point this is regularly at $45, I would really love to see it at 90 proof. Anytime I'm paying that much, I like 90 proof. Now 90, higher proof doesn't necessarily mean a better whiskey any more than a higher proof, higher percentage beer makes it a better beer. However, if I'm paying that much, it does say single barrel rye. I do like anytime American whiskey, bourbon. I do. Again, for about the same price is the Pendergast Royal Gold Bourbon, 90 proof bourbon. I really like 90 if it's going to be about that price point. However, having said all that, this rye is absolutely delicious. Medium soft body, again, a lemon, ginger, you might find some stone fruit in there as well. Getting to the end, a nice light toast, very light toasted oak, and then a combination of baking spice. Again, cinnamon, allspice, a lot of ginger for me. A lot of ginger for me. But you might feel some cardamom as well. You might feel some other things. That wouldn't necessarily be unusual. But yeah, so the spice of this whiskey, both from the rye and the barrel, really break up the sweetness from this beer, and that's what I look for when I do any kind of a pairing. I look for products that are going to work well together. A lot like putting a meal together. You're not looking for three things that taste like turkey. If turkey's your main dish, okay, I want the other side dish to taste like turkey. You want the other side dishes to work with that turkey, and that's what I look for when I put a pairing together. I'm not necessarily looking for the whiskey to taste like the beer. I'm looking for flavors and aromas that will work well together and complement each other. Using my my Brew Lab little Belgian taster here. I love these little Belgian tasters. I got a couple of them from a couple different places, but I just like them. They're nice. Sometimes I use little snifters, but these Belgian tasters are nice as well. I've had this beer in the past where that, again, like I said, that maple just kills everything. And what's nice here is I feel that maple, but the first thing I noticed was the coffee, which is typically what you notice from KBS in any incarnation. So this is the CBS, obviously, but you're using the coffee, you're using the chocolate, and you want to feel those notes. And the maple just sort of works around all that in this year's batch, whereas in past versions, all I've tasted was maple. And as I have just a touch of lingering sweetness there, I pick up this whiskey and it just dries it all up for me. They're a perfect pairing. Their website says it's bottled at a very sippable 80 proof. Yes, it is. It's incredibly sippable. I mean, it's very sippable. Last night, I bought it yesterday afternoon. I had some yesterday evening. and I had an ounce and a half neat, and then I took 2 1/4 ounces and made a Manhattan out of it, and it makes an absolutely gorgeous Manhattan because of the spice. But it drinks beautifully neat. I wouldn't have an issue at $20. I wouldn't have an issue. Well, even if I'm making a Manhattan or an old fashioned, I don't recommend bottom shelf liquors. If you're making classic cocktails like that, you want to use a decent. So even at the $45 price point, I wouldn't have an issue using that in a Manhattan. I would have an issue if somebody wants to put soda pop in it. But at the $20 price point, this would be a beautiful whiskey if you were so inclined to do a highball. I wouldn't necessarily pour Coke in this, but yeah, if you want a classic highball, this would be perfect with ginger ale. So there you go. Anyway, I am Tom, the Beer Whisperer. Who else would I be, man? Beer evangelist, prolific beer drinker, purveyor wisdom man. I'm also Tom, the Whiskey Whisperer, whiskey evangelist, prolific whiskey drinker, purveyor wisdom man. They tell you to look for notes of lemon, and I do taste that. But the more I drink this, the more I feel it more as ginger. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is fresh grated ginger. If you've ever grated fresh ginger, you get that combination of citrus and spice. And that's really what I feel from here. So one more time, I'm feeling I am down to Whiskey Whisper. Take a yes with a feather. Whiskey evangelist, particularly, that's too other. Prolific whiskey drinker. I go into that voice and I can't stop. And you know, that Rod Liebman voice from Up the Academy. Anyway. Prolific whiskey drinker, purveyor wisdom man. I'm losing myself. I'll have to turn this video off and go find myself. All right, good guy. Cheers, y'all.